on Monday, right before dojo, I was literally talking to reptiles in my yard because I live in the desert, and there's been an influx of reptiles. Um, there was a snake, and I get to see how I react, and I get to slow down for just a half a second before I react. There was also a scorpion in the house. So I had the scorpion and snake, which to me are both like a red flag, like whatever else is happening in my life. It's watch out for snake, watch out for things that are could be dangerous. And it was not a rattlesnake, and that was a good thing. And but the also anyway, just swinging back to the idea of being an artist. Am I being heard okay? Because I get
Yeah, you sound great.
okay, great, thanks. Um, when I was growing up as an artist and in the school system, I was taught a couple of things, or at least I understood one thing was that if I was going to be an artist and go for a degree in art, that I was not to expect that that was going to be my way to get a job in any, that there wasn't a job at the end of that avenue, so that it was a separate thing for me. It was, but my parents wanted all of us to have degrees, and we had to have our college degrees. I said, okay, then it's going to be art. Sorry, and I'm going to have fun. And I know that it's not a ticket to a job. And I was able to maybe do something later with it. But the point is that plus the other thing that I deeply understand is that if you go into your art expecting it to bring you money, then it's not going to go very well. It just doesn't seem like when it's not the goal, but yeah, I guess the goal or the end product is earning a living or somehow bringing an income. That for me anyway, I don't know, maybe it's just for me, but I could never. I'm just a horrible manager with money in general, and I'm just lucky that things go the way they go, and I don't know. I just try not to even think about any of that stuff. And I try to become a businesswoman and advocate for my art and so forth and so on. But that's just that I'm way over here on the side of just making the stuff, and maybe that's an excuse, but it feels right on that level. And anyway, meanwhile, back to the reptiles. They're actually these giant lit. They're called chuckwallas, but they're iguanas that are crawling around, and they're pretty tame. And I actually they jump on my hand, and I feed them by hand. And I look at them, and I stare into their eyes, and they seem to stare back. And I can tell by, they're looking around to see if there's any predators up above. And the iguanas also have that little dot on the top of their head, which is basically it's like a light sensor in case there's a shadow of a hawk that goes over. It's just like a on off kind of a thing. And I believe that's a similar, we probably have some of those too, those little sensors that are just light sensors that are not, if there is anything, it's going to be a blurry thing. They're not going to actually see with it, but it's called a third eye on the top of their head. And you can actually see it on iguanas. There's a little dot there. Not on the wild ones here. I haven't noticed it, but I've seen it on people's pet iguanas, the kind that, because my ex used to have an iguana, and it was a different kind with the comb and everything. It's different than the ones here. The ones here, the chuckwallas, are like desert iguanas. They're in the iguana family, but they're unique, and they're different colors, and they're amazing, and they're just magnificent and crazy and wacky, and they have little personalities and little dramas that are playing out all around me. And it's literally just reptiles and lizards. There's whiptail lizards, there's rattlesnakes, there's every kind of reptile you could imagine, pretty much. Not very many tortoises, or yeah, not as many desert tortoises as I would like. But doing the art and putting your heart and soul into it, to me, I mean, I've sold paintings before by having somebody put it on the wall at a cafe, and they said, how much do you want for it? How about $50? And it was like, wow, I sold a painting for 50. It was like, wow, because, you know, I was in college and it was like amazing. And, that seemed to make sense on just a one-time thing but mostly I just want to give people my stuff. I don't want to sell it. I just want to give it to you. I want to make you a painting. Like, what do you want? What do you want a picture of? And that's what I want to do. And that's what I do. So, um, otherwise I'm out there, cleaning toilets or picking up trash in the park, for money, or at least that's what I did like a big part of my life until I worked at the print shop. And then it was typesetting and doing graphics until the desktop publishing took over, and there was no more printing presses, and there were no more putting ink on the machine and you know the mechanics of the gears and the beautiful machines that used to actually print things one by one on a sheet of paper. That's about it.
Well, I think that's a more honorable way of doing art. And I think that my mental sanity is wrapped into why I want to, I want my organism to thrive from the very cosmology that I express through my art. Because otherwise, people would just call me crazy, and there would just be too many, and I just wouldn't make it. That's all. I've been in those situations, and so in my mind, it's very the art has just been the perfect furniture I have to touch my psychology and to do things with my psychology to exercise my self worth through the idea that, well, even though people are saying this is a stupid idea or it doesn't make much sense or whatever, if it's putting a shelter over my house, then it literally does make sense. It literally does have justification, and it gives my personal sense of self a false, I will say it, a false sense of security, but a sense of security that gives me so many more calories than I used to have without it. Because when I'm living in a mode where I'm working and then I'm stopping and then I'm going to do my art, I don't do art because I don't think that creating makes sense because I'm not out of the Maslow's pyramid yet. That I'm in a state of, this is just how I see it. I hope I don't sound argumentative. I until I emerge out of this pyramid of food, clothing, shelter, I really don't think that I'm even capable of producing art. And so, from my personal standpoint, it's been such a vital sense of, if I can make art be the thing that gets me out of this pyramid, then that art is exactly what I should be pursuing. But if it does not, then I don't know if that's really what I should be doing with my life. I want my life to be out of that pyramid where most other people are, where I'm waiting until 4 o'clock happens because at 4 o'clock, this imaginary door opens and I get to leave. And then I get to do something, and that time is there. But then there's this other time where I come back into this imaginary place and sit there again. That eats more of my calories than I could ever have to even have art. In other words, that feeling of being in that thing for a while, from 9 to 5 or whatever it is, that eats so many calories that I don't even want to make art. I just want to try and find a survival through that point. And to me, this is a psychological conscious thing that's happening across the board with all of us. The generational changes. When you're looking at the TikTok videos that are like, this person's called this other person an N word, and we found out where they work, and we told their boss, and now they've been fired. Does anyone hear how fucking kindergarten that is? Like, first of all, that's fine. I don't have a beef with that. I don't believe I think free speech is bullshit. I think you should be responsible for your speech, right? But I just trying to say that in this case, it's showing so clear that none of us are adults, that none of us are really living in a way where we don't have someone that can be told on, where you can go tell on someone that will hurt you for that. In my mind, the art would be superficial unless it made my lifestyle bulletproof so that I could make more. until it did that, I would not have any what's the word? I wouldn't have any justification to even be making art, because if it doesn't do this, it's not an art to me. It's not an expression of that, so to speak. And it's all psychological. It's all fucking psychological Freudian furniture based on probably how I was raised. Just trying to survive in that way of like, how do I find out someone to tell me I'm okay? Honestly, that's what created that out of me. And the only way that I could get that is this has to actually pay my bills. I don't need to live rich. I don't have a family. I don't have nice cars, none of that stuff. I just want to be able to make more art. And I can only make that art if that pyramid is satisfied. If I have food, clothing, shelter, my confidence, my parasympathetic nature comes out, and then my compassion is able to come out, and only then can I produce. And I think I'm backwards. I think a lot of other people, they do it the opposite. They utilize art to get themselves into the parasympathetic state. And I think that's fascinating. And also, I'm like, I don't know how you can do a backflip. I think you're fucking insane. I think you're going to fucking break your neck. Why are you doing that? That's
Yeah.
not saying it's brave, right? But that's how I see it. So is an open mic if anyone has anything on this. This is a great topic, Annie.
Yes. I can say just the concept of art, arc, arch, right? So bridging, it's sort of the creative trinity there, where you have the structure, the you are embody, you're the protein shake, the protein shell, in which you are giving more dimensional reality to at factoring levels. And it sort of goes into the 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 star in my eye, right? The faith of a mustard seed, starting imprinting uh, that pulse that propagates further, you know, the
Yeah.